Welcome, and thank you for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's session. Today's session is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Crystal Jimerson from the U.S. Census Bureau. Crystal, you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Where Do College Graduates Go? Exploring the PSEO Explorer tool. My name is Crystal Jimerson, and I'm a Data Dissemination Specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I would like to thank you for joining us today for the It's All in the Tools webinar series. This new series was created by Census Academy here at the Census Bureau. You can register for any of the workshop webinars by accessing census.gov. We will post the workshops monthly for early registration. Just visit census.gov/academy. Please note that seating is limited on a first-come, first-served basis. We think these hands-on exercise-based workshops will be a valuable opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data tools and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser to participate in the exercises. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar. In terms of how to ask questions during the webinar, you can submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you've found the panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Don't send your questions to an individual panelist. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. And definitely keep that chat panel open also, because this is where we will provide key links and other resources. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. Chat is just for us to send you links and other resources. In the chat box, we will be sharing throughout the webinar the link to our evaluation. We are very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. My colleagues, Misty and Sam, will be monitoring the Q&A panel. As time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your questions with the presenter to respond to throughout the workshop. If we don't get to all the questions with the response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar material on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. Again, as mentioned before, near the end of the webinar, we'll put into the chat a link to our evaluation so you can tell us how we did today. We hope you'll take the time to complete, as we are always looking for ways to improve our training. As you know, we are in a virtual environment, and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now, I would like to introduce you to our speaker, David Krager. Thanks again for being here today. David, you may begin.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Crystal. Thanks for that great introduction. So once again, the title today is Where Do College Graduates Go? I am going to just progress along here really quickly. Go. Yeah. So just so you know a little bit about me, I have been at the Census Bureau for 25 years. I first was a geographer in the New York Regional Office, and the last few years I have been a data dissemination specialist, helping people, find our data Previously, in another life, before census, I was a cartographer and worked in private mapping companies. I was also a French teacher, so I did go to school at Clark University and Rutgers Newark. So let me just go along here. So today, these are our objectives and also a little bit of an agenda. So we do want to understand the PSEO. I will explain what that means. We want to learn how to use the tool, and we do want to learn know how to find the numbers that are in the tool. Okay, for this, a little bit of an agenda today, just so you know where you are as we go through this. I am going to give a PowerPoint slide background information for you. It's only about 5 slides long. Then I'm going to go on to the website live and give you a demonstration how to use the tool. Okay, I will show you some of what I call peripheral information, not necessarily the tool itself, but the things around the tool that you might find useful. And then we're going to just go through the tool itself, and then I'm going to give you a few hopefully easy exercises, and you can work on those exercises, and then we'll come back together after a few minutes, and I will show you how to get to the answer for those exercises. So let me just dive into this a little bit, into this part of it, okay? So here we have PSEO, and what does that actually mean? It means a post-secondary education outcome, okay? And so it's actually the tool we are going to be looking at today, but PSEO is actually a picture of, where graduates go. Where do college graduates go? What industries do they go into, and where do they geographically go around the country? And then what we do with this tool is actually tabulate the employment flows and the earnings as well. So not only where do they go, right, but how much do they make, okay? And that's coming out of certain universities. And we don't have information for every university, but we have links for many of them. And we are giving transcript information to our branch from different universities. So we are not the ones actually gathering the data. It's actually these individual universities, and then they pass it on to us, and then we work with it. Okay, so let's look at that. This is, like I just said, how's this done? The partner, whatever it is, a partner state or a group of universities in that state, they submit the earnings quarterly to us. And then they also give us some grad transcript data, meaning where people are living and what they're working in, that sort of thing. And then we are converting the earnings to current dollars, okay? And then we are actually subtracting out graduates or students who aren't actually working or in the workforce, or they're making such a low amount of money that they are not considered being in the workforce. If you look over here on the right, this is just a snippet I took from our website of a map showing you how different states participate or they don't. So some of them give us more information. For example, Virginia gives us a lot more coverage of different universities than maybe some of the other states. And some states don't participate at all. They're not even in this yet. Okay, every year we have a few more states that that come on board and give us information. Okay, so where and where actually do college graduates go? So we're going to get to a point where I show you how to get to this flows diagram. So we're actually looking at the geography, where people are going geographically, or the employment sectors that they're going into. And we can do that either by the numbers from specific universities, or we can do it using percentages. One thing I would say is, since not all states are partnering with us in this project, if a state is not partnering with us, we cannot release data for that state. It's something we're just not doing. So instead what we do, in this example, Connecticut partners with us, so we can release the data for Connecticut, correct? But for the other areas, we're going to just say South Atlantic, or middle of the country, or West Coast, that sort of thing. And we sort of group it together as a region. Back over here on the left, I just want to point out that the data is uploaded twice into our system quarter 2 and quarter 4. So quarter 2 is actually new systems and additional earning years that gets put in there. Let me just move on. Okay, so this is another thing that we will be looking at, and this is a bar graph, right? And I've highlighted in yellow over here on the left. So how much do college students earn? So we can look at the what we call the 1, 5, or 10-year cohorts. Do you want to see how much you're making the first year out of college, the 5 years out of college, or 10 years out of college? And that's what this is on the right here, is showing you how that is in comparison to other students in that university. And then we also have the percentile cohorts if you want to do that. So we have here the 25 percentile on the left, in the middle is the 50 percentile, and the 75 percentile on the right. And so you can grab it that way if you want to get a different visual with that. And then we can actually compare different sectors as well. So I only have one sector up here right now. It's called business management. But if you wanted to put, say, a history major up there and an engineering major up there, we could actually do that and have a look at that. Okay, so which institutions are uploaded? So, up until now I kind of said state, right? But we actually have state colleges, like four-year colleges. We have community colleges. And then we have private universities as well. So these are called different systems. Over here on the right at the top, I've done a little copy and pasting just so you can see this week, I say, which states have information in our system. And then down below, I've just sort of did a little bit of a drop down for Virginia so that you can see, and there we have the community colleges, that's kind of one system, and then we have the state colleges, another, and for some states like Connecticut, we actually have private university systems which are loaded in there as well. So it isn't just state by state, it's sort of different systems within each state. Looking over here on the left, remember I said this week, because I think it's next week or the week after, June 29th, we will be adding more states to the system. So we do this every year, sometime between the end of June and the beginning of July, we add more people come on board, more partners, and we put that information in there. So notice that next week it's going to be Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Carolina that get added, and then the Wyoming community colleges. And then for Georgia, we already have Georgia in there now, but it will now include independent colleges, and so we can look at that as well, do a little bit of a comparison. Let me just go ahead. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go right into a demonstration and show us all how this works a little bit. Let me just transition over there. You should be able to see my census website. So I went to something called www.census.gov. That's our landing page at the Census Bureau. Certainly an easier way to get in here would just be to do something in your search engine like Google and say PSEO and Census Bureau, and it should bring you to the page. But right now I'm going to just show you the breadcrumbs to get there. You come here. This is data and maps, and then over here on the right, we're going to have data, tools, and apps. It's very small right here. If you can see my hand, I'm just moving that around, and I click on that, and it will open the site for me. So here we have all our data tools. They're all listed here alphabetically. There's all sorts of things in here, not just one thing. But notice it says right here where I'm showing you my cursor, page 1 and page 2. So I'm actually going to go to page 2 because I know this is in alphabetical order, and I'm looking for PSEO Explorer right here. So when I click on that, it takes me right into the tool. Okay, so here is that tool, and it goes into something, it defaults to Colorado and the University of Colorado, but before I actually go into the tool, I said I want to show you a little peripheral information. Up here on the left is a little logo. It says PSEO. If I click on that, it brings me to the LEHD page, as we call it, and it gives us a little bit more information about PSEO. So if we were to come down here, you can see right in the middle, it says state or territory all, and I can select something here. So for example, Georgia, and right here I could view the files. And if I wanted to download this sort of, I'll call it more raw data, I could download that. And if I had my own Tableau system or whatever system I'm using to depict information, I could do it myself. Okay, you don't have to be reliant on our depiction. You can actually take the data and use it as you see fit. Okay, so that data is down here. It's free for the taking. And then as we come down a little bit further, here's that map that I showed before. It shows how the different states are participating if you wanted to see this. If you were to click right on a state, and I won't do that, but if I were to click on it, it would load us directly into the PSEO Explorer, and it would load that state for me. Okay, but I don't want to do that for purposes of demonstrating what we're doing here. But you could do that. That's an easy way to get there if you wanted to go that route. And then down here below the map, we're actually showing you what's loaded in to our system. So look at to Connecticut as an example. Here's Connecticut, and then right here are the three systems we have here. So we have the University of Connecticut is its own thing, right? And then we have the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, and then a consortium of independent colleges. And so from our perspective, that covers 64% of the institutions that are in Connecticut. Okay, and that's sort of how you would read that. And as you go down, you can see other things that are loaded in there as well. Notice not every state is in there. This is a work in progress, and we do hope that other people will partner with us in the future. So let me just move my little box over here. Sorry about that. Talking to myself as I move little windows around. Okay, so a few other things. Over here on the right, we have some of the methodology if you wanted to open those, or data notices if you wanted to sign up for something. But there's a little bit of extra information right here, upper right, where my little cursor is. And then right below that is the entrance into the PSEO Explorer. So it is right here, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on that and just load it, and it brings me into my default setting. And that default setting is actually for Colorado, or the University of Colorado. If anybody does not see that, let me know. Okay, so before I go on, I'm just going to say I have my two colleagues, Sam and Misty, here who are looking at the chat, and if anybody's asking questions, they're going to answer questions as best possible. But when I get to the very end of the presentation today, if there are any residual questions or just anything anybody wants to ask or have read, I will try to answer those, or we can even work through a problem. But right now, let's look at this. We're going to look over on the left, PSEO. Here it is, earnings versus flows. And so right now, we are really just going to look at the earnings tab right here, okay? And so Colorado is here, but I'm not going to look at Colorado. I'm going to come down here to Georgia. So I click on Georgia, and it will default to the main university in that state. So notice it went from Georgia to the University of Georgia, right? And it defaults to baccalaureate or bachelor's degree. But notice there are other degrees in here that you could select if you wanted to. And also other universities up here are institutions. And there's also a search function if you wanted to use that to look for a specific university as well. So all cohorts, let me open that tab so you see, you could select different years if you want to. I will say I am not a statistician, and so to me there's a bit of a mystique behind this, how to, to do this and how to understand that. So for myself, I am just really selecting all cohorts, meaning all those years together, averaged out in today's dollars, so that I can look at that as the way that I would understand it, okay? And then I'm going to leave it here as a time right now, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to look at this, the 75th percentile, meaning the top, I'll call it one, it's not really that way, but the top quarter of what people are making after they get out of college, all right? And so here we have sort of 1 year out, 5 years out, and then 10 years out, okay? But I don't really want to look at, it's sort of already populated something here, and this is not what I want to look at. So I'm coming down here on the left, at the very bottom left, right here where my cursor is, clear selected, so I clear. Okay, and now what I want to look at is mathematics, and I want you to see over here in the listing, things could be in alphabetical order, or they may just be by size, meaning the largest programs at that university. So I'm actually going to click here, list by name, okay, and that puts everything in alphabetical order going from left to right, all right? And so I wanted to look at two different things. I wanted to look at mathematics, and here it is right there. So let's just look at, oh, let me clear these out. If you turn something on you don't want, just turn it off. Okay, and so here we have mathematics, and we're looking at that. And so people who have a bachelor's degree coming out of the University of Georgia, 1 year out, the average that they're going to make is $62,883, and then 5 years out, and then 10 years out, okay? And then we can compare that to something else. So I will say psychology right here on the right. And we're seeing how much people will be making with a bachelor's degree, and then 1 year out, 5 years out, and then 10 years out. But we could also change it right here to master's degree, and let's see if it's any different. So it is a little bit different. And you could look at that if you wanted to and do that sort of comparison. Okay. Okay, so that's the University of Georgia, and that was mathematics and psychology. But I could, let's just select another university. And so one thing I want you to see, I'm going to select here, and I will go to Connecticut. And the interesting thing is when you switch to another university, it's going to grab the default university, but I don't want that. I want University of Connecticut. It's probably down here at the bottom. Oops, university, there it is, the largest university. And it will keep what you've selected there. So it's keeping mathematics and statistics, but do notice that they don't have information in there yet for 10 years out. They only have it for the 1 year and the 5 year. And it's still at master's. Everything that I set for University of Georgia is now set for Connecticut, right? And so it just sort of, you know, you can move over there somewhat easily if you can. So let me just look at one other university. We'll go to, I think, Michigan and see what they have. Okay, and I will put it back on the bachelor's degree. Okay, so here we have the time out. So we have the I'm sorry, the 10 years out, if you wanted to look at that, and what people would be making in Michigan. And we can always throw other things in there if we want to, or take something out. So maybe we have mathematics and statistics, and we take out psychology, but maybe we want to look at engineering and see who's making what or how much. So this is kind of an interesting thing to look at if we needed to, okay? So, all right, then, so what let's see, I'm going to go ahead and show you the flows, okay? And so what we can do here is we're going to change over from earnings to flows, okay? So I click on that. So now we've done something totally different, right? We've moved over, and we're at the University of Michigan, and it's sort of giving us a flow, all right? It's showing us where people go. And so this is where you maybe want to look over here and change things around a little bit. So right now, and things actually change themselves. We're looking at industry, right? And we have 1 year out, 5 years out, or 10 years out. So we can change that if we wanted to, all right? And we see this. And then we can also look at this, not just a count, but we can look as a share of what's there. So notice we have engineering and mathematics, right? And so it's sort of saying it's 100% of whatever is there, and it's sort of dividing it up percentage-wise. And when you're looking at this flows section right here, I do want to show you, okay, right here we have industry, if you can see where my cursor is, we have industry and geo. And so you can make it even more complex you can turn on Geo right there, and it shows you not just where people are going to from the University of Maryland, what industry they're going into, but actually where they're going. So notice it tells you 30% of all their students stay in Michigan, and then many of them are going to the Pacific, and then from there maybe to the East, North Central, wherever that is, South Atlantic. So you can look at all these. You can also hover over one of these flow bars like that, and you can get a better percentage. If you wanted to turn off something, I'll come back over here to the left, and I turn off industry. Now we just have where they go. It is always adding from the right. Okay, whether we have those bar graphs we looked at before or this flow graph now, it always adds from the right. Okay, so right now we're looking at geography, right? And over here on, I will turn on industry, and notice it adds the industry on the right. So you can change the way your flow diagram looks. If I turn off geography over here on the left really quick, I turn that off. It now looks like this, and then if I turn the geography back on, it loads it from the right. Okay, so that's something you can do with that, all right? All right, so let's look at a couple other things once again on this flow diagram. I'm going to go to another university, back to your University of Georgia. Okay, so let me see if I can get that up there. Oh, come on. Oh, it froze up on me, sorry. Hold on. Okay, oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so here we are, back to this. I'm trying to get to the University of Georgia there. It froze up on me just for a second, okay? So I need to get to Georgia, and it will bring me to the default University of Georgia, baccalaureate, all cohorts. But I can fool around with this a little bit. Maybe I don't want to look at the geography. I'm looking at the industry. And so I have a couple of things written down here I wanted to show you. So I thought I would show you this, engineering. And let me see if I can get that. Having a little bit of trouble with this. All right. Okay, so I have, oops, lost that. Engineering. And I did want to show education. All right. And I do want to turn off mathematics. Okay. So here we have engineering and education. So people who are studying education, 94%. But now notice over on the left, I can actually click on size of the program instead of percentage. Sorry, I lost my cursor here. Here it is. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, the count. Okay, so we have a count here, which is kind of interesting, right? So look at that. We have a lot more people at the University of Georgia who are studying education than who are studying engineering. And I find that kind of an interesting thing to look at. I'm going to go back here to PowerPoint demonstration. I'm trying to get my cursor back. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Everyone, bear with me just a second. Let me see if I can do this really quick. Cursor. There we go. I think we're good. Cursor. Okay, you can see my screen, I'm sure. We're going to do this, mouse settings and pointer size. So we can do this, pointer size. And okay, I want a color. I was trying to get a color that I could see, but it's not working. Okay. So, all right, I am going to go back to my PowerPoint really quick. Okay, hold on. Sorry about this. Something happened to my cursor. And let's see, we're going to do this. Everybody help me. Shout out an answer if you have settings. We're going to try to do this. And we want this to be mouse cursor. Cursor speed. Okay. if you never knew this, you can change the color of your mouse. Okay, there we go. And let's hope we can see it. There we go. We can see that now. Okay, so here we are. All right, I do want to show this. Here we go. So here we are, University of Georgia. People who majored in baccalaureate or bachelor's degree education, and those who went into engineering, which I found really interesting. But then if I switch it, let's just switch to Colorado, University of Colorado, the main university, Boulder. And look at that. How many people actually studied engineering as opposed to education? So it sort of flipped for the University of Colorado and the University of Georgia. And I had to really think about that for a little while. And I came back to Georgia. And I said, what is going on here? And then I realized I come down here to institutions, and I'm looking for, let's see if we can find it, Georgia Institute of Technology. And so I flipped it to that, and I realized, oh, everybody is going to the Georgia Institute of Technology who's studying this. So, okay. So we may come back to this, but let me go back to PowerPoint, and we are going to actually move forward with a couple exercises for people to have fun with. So this is exercise number 1 for the University of Georgia, all the cohorts, right? So all the years together, what would a bachelor in history, okay, a history bachelor's degree major be making 10 years after graduation? So University of Georgia. And so little clue here, use the time and the 75th percentile to get that. And then in comparison, for the same university and cohort, what will engineering majors be making? So, okay, I'm going to, I think Crystal might put that up there on the screen. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to do this.
We have 2 minutes remaining.
David, the poll is now closed, and we do have the results in.
Okay, let me go ahead and give the answer here. Just okay, so this is the answer for that, and I'm actually going to go right back into the website, and we'll take a look at that together. Okay, so let me come up here to the top. We said we were going to be looking at the earnings up here, right? And we're looking at Georgia, and not Georgia Institute of Technology, but University of Georgia. Let me see if I can find that. And it's down here. Okay, University of Georgia. Okay, and we're looking at the bachelor's degree. You know, remember you could have selected, you know, somebody did, I saw it in the chat, we do, for some universities have associate's degree information in there, but we're actually just taking a baccalaureate degree, all cohorts, and the time, and then I believe I said 75th percentile, right? So the upper earnings that people are making, right? And we're doing that through time, and we're looking for the 10 years out, I believe, yes. And so anyway, we're going to come down here, and I would say you need to clear selected right there. Okay, and so we were actually looking at history major. So here it is right there. Okay, and so the answer is 87,713. And while we're here, there's another part to this, but I do want to say, I forgot to say this before. If you're in a university, or it's actually a state, whatever state you're in, you can come up here and it says download data, and it will download all the data for all the colleges in that state. Okay, so whatever state you're in, you can download that data straight away right here. And then so then I added on what is engineering making as well. So let me see, engineering right here. So you add that on. And then here's the answer over here. Okay, engineering versus history. Okay, so you can certainly do that. So while I'm here, okay, I did see that in the chat. Somebody did ask about the two-year degrees, associate degrees. Let me just show you really quickly. So right here, I know that we have that for Virginia. So you could come down here to Virginia. It just depends on what system or what groups of colleges get added for a state. So I'm actually going to go to certificate 1 or 2 year degrees, okay, and then let's just see what University of Virginia, it would be something like community college, I think, so Blue Ridge Community College. We'll look at that, and let's just see what they have as options down here. Not a lot, but they have a few things that are here. So they've sort of grouped it together, but here's something, healthcare professionals, let's just see what the information is that's here. So there is some information that's here. It's not totally here, but we don't have the 10 years out, but we have 1 year and 5 year, if we were looking at that. Then we have the different percentiles over here. So the higher, and then the number of years that they're out. Okay, so, all right. So let me go back, and I hope I'm not confusing anybody too much. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so once again, this was the answer. You were selecting the earnings toggle, Georgia, University of Georgia, time, 75th percentile, and then history, okay? Okay, and then you would turn on the toggle for engineering to get that second number. All right, so we have another problem here. And so this time we're looking at that flows data. Okay, this is a little bit more complex perhaps. So we're going to look at the University of Virginia. And remember, you're going to turn on the flows toggle. And you probably want to look at the percent share toggle that's down near the bottom. And for the major in business and management, what percentage of students go into professional, scientific, and technical careers 5 years after graduating? Okay, and so this is for people who are doing baccalaureate or bachelor's degree. Okay, and then there's a second part to this. For the same school or major, University of Virginia, turn on the geo and the percent share toggles. Which two geographic areas get the highest percentages of those graduates? So I'm going to say, okay, this is the problem, and let's say 1, 2, 3, go.
30 seconds left on that poll. Okay, David, the poll is now closed.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So let me start my video again. All right, it starts. Okay. Okay, let me give the answer. Okay. So the answer is 38%. So that's for the University of Virginia, major in business management, and what percentage of students go into professional, scientific, and technical careers. Somebody asked in the chat about the CIP or SIP, they call it. Yes, it is grouped by CIP. Okay, just to respond to that. Okay, and then what you would be doing is selecting the flows toggle, Virginia, University of Virginia, and then the industry, and then 5 years, and then the percentage. And then there's a second part to this question, where did most of those people go? So the answer was actually sort of equally to the Mid-Atlantic and Virginia. So let me just go back to this, all right? And we will go to Virginia. And, oh, actually, we're on flows. I'm sorry. So you need to do what I do, click on flows first, and then we're going to go to Virginia, and then we will go to University of Virginia. And let's see if we can get down here. There it is. Okay. And then we're actually looking at the baccalaureate degree. Okay, and I leave it in all cohorts. And so we were asking about the industry, and I think we were looking for, actually I don't remember, flows, 5 years out, yeah. And that's what it defaults to, I think. So we were looking at percentages, right? So we need to look at the share and business and management. Marketing, let's see if that's, I have the right thing here. Business and management, select the flows, okay, and then the industry that they're going into 5 years out. Okay, and professional, scientific, and technical, and it says here 38%, okay? And by the way, some people do indicate to me this is a little hard to read. If you just hover over it sometimes, it will have a little bit of a pop-up menu that you can look at. You can also, as far as I know, I think you can just click on it and it sort of opens it up for, although that is not easier to read. So I'm going to click back on the white space and it brings me back to where I was, okay? So this is just letting us know. And then if we wanted to look at the geos, right? So we're going to activate the geo toggle right here on the left. And I could actually turn off the industry toggle if I wanted to do that. It might make it a little bit easier to look at. So here we have, it's kind of even. So 29% are staying in the Mid-Atlantic and 29% in Virginia, okay? And I think if I were to, you know, why is one above the other? If I were to come back over here on the left to the share and click on the count, it would show me that it's a slightly higher count, I believe, for Mid-Atlantic than it is for Virginia. So somebody did ask, are we going to have more detailed geos coming out? And I think they mean by state. So I said a little bit earlier, we're not allowed to release state information for other states if those states are not partnering with us on this project. I think the hope and the vision of the LEHT group who put this together is that states will eventually all buy into this and that data could actually be released a little bit more granularly, meaning state by state. So there is a desire to do that, but I don't know if we will ever get there. Okay, so that's just how you show the flows, and we did the bar graphs, and I'm going to stop and say, are there anybody have any questions for me, or was there anything there that I did not cover? Okay, I'll
David,
wait.
this is Sam. I do have one question that has come up several times, and I'll read right from Jonathan Barber's question. The question is, there are at least 20 states that are not yet participating. Is there an expectation that those states will eventually participate? And if so, what is the estimated timeframe? Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't think there is, I don't think we have any expectation. We're not actually, what I found out for this tool, they're not really out there promoting it very much. We don't, maybe if somebody hears my colleague, Andrew Foote, who talks about this and presents on this, he goes to different organizations and talks about it. And if somebody hears that and the state decides to sign up, that's how it happens. But I don't think the Census Bureau is actively, I'll say robustly soliciting states to join on to this. And the other thing is there's no fee to join. They just decide to join, but they have to continuously supply their data. So, I'm sure we would love everybody to join this, but I don't know if that's a reality for the people who are gathering the data. So think of this, that these universities are actually gathering the data themselves, and then they're feeding it to us, and then we're sort of, tweaking it and smoothing it out and releasing it to the public. So I don't know that we have any expectations, but it does seem, I would say, I have noticed that every year a few more systems or more states sign on to this. So it's a lot further along than it was a few years ago.
Thank you, David. Another question from Melanie Moore are there plans to have more detailed geographies like by state or MSA?
Oh, okay. So I have not heard anything other than releasing the data by state. Well, MSA, that is an interesting concept. Okay. Right now, it's done by state, and we only, for example, if you selected Virginia and you're wondering where people go, Virginia will be in the mix, but the other parts like Mid-Atlantic, it just says Mid-Atlantic because that groups a few states in there where we don't have their buy-in from this yet. So until they sign into this, we can't really release information by every state. So right now, we would hope to do by state, but that MSA concept, that's an interesting concept, and maybe that would be down the road, but right now we're just doing it by state in generalized area. Okay, were there any other questions?
Generally, there's a few people that I'll aggregate their questions here. It seems as though that some of the questions have been, do I have to look at the data by school and cohort individually, and then maybe output that individually, and then look for another one and output that individually
Yeah.
in order to compare?
Yeah, that is the unfortunate. That is unfortunate. Yes, you do have to do that. However, let's think about this. So you could conceivably set something up. So here we have business management, marketing majors, right, for University of Virginia. And if we wanted to, switch to somewhere else that has that, so we'll say Alabama, University of Alabama, it will keep your cohorts and all that, but you do have to keep switching back and forth. You can't see two universities at one time. I would think that would be, helpful, whether it's the flow or the earnings right here. So I think if I talk to the people in LEHD, if I have a conversation with them, I'm going to actually bring this concept back to them. That maybe that would be a nice way to compare things. So I would agree with that question, that would be a nice addition to this.
Thank you, David. An additional question that just came in is from Travis Spees. Are there any data sets that might not only capture these kinds of employment outcomes, but also suggest why they leave the state they are studying in, or break down who stays or goes by gender or race, etc.?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't see that we have that yet by gender or race. That could be an interesting concept. And I'm sure somewhere somebody is gathering that data. But right now it is not here. And also why are people, okay, here we have University of Alabama, business management, why this many people stay in the state and this many people don't, I don't know. That would be kind of a nice thing to know. The other thing, if you're looking at this, I wanted to point something out here. I forgot to do this earlier. So here we have the GEO. Okay, so let me do this. Business and management major. Okay, so this is University of Alabama. And I'm just grabbing this. I don't know what it's going to look like as I go through. But here we have almost 8,000 students 1 year out. They're staying in Alabama. 5 years out, what's happening? Okay, then we have more. They've actually, it seems like they maybe have come back to Alabama. And then 10 years out, what happens? Less of them. So where have they gone? Maybe they've died. I don't know. But I do see that sometimes. Let me just go and grab another one just to show you. So I will, I saw a really unique one the other day, and maybe it was even Georgia. Not that okay, I'm just going to select Georgia. Here we have business and management. We're going to look at 1 year out of the University of Georgia. 15,000 students stay in Georgia. 5 years out, what's happening? Only 11,000. Okay, so some of them have probably left. And then here we have 6,000. So who knows what's going on? But I have a feeling that they're going on to the 1 year out. They hang around and then they start leaving the state. Okay, but other states I see where they've, you can see that they left the state and then people are coming back. So that is just another way to look at this if you wanted to. Anyway, I did not quite answer the question, but it does sort of show that people are leaving and coming back, but I don't know why.
Okay, thank you, David. In addition to gratitude for this information, there are no additional questions in the Q&A.
Okay, all right. So I am actually finished with this part, but I do want to have a couple more slides here. I just want to show you, this is who I am. If you needed my email contact, if you have an iPhone, this is the time to pull it out and take a picture. But you could send me questions, but often I'm away on, not often, but sometimes I'm away on vacation, and you might want to send your questions to census.askdata@census.gov because they're always there. Maybe we're away or something. So there's always somebody monitoring that website or that phone line to try to get an answer for you. If you wanted to join, sign up to Census Academy, that is something we have where we send out alerts to webinars that are up and coming. We also have little data gems or YouTube videos that we make explaining different things. And so this is the QR code. If you wanted to point your phone at it and grab that, it would take you to that website. So I will just wait 1 second, and I'm going to move on to one more last slide. Okay, so once again, this is me on the left, and then if you want to take a survey, did you think this was a good presentation or not such a good presentation? You can take a picture of this QR code and it will take you to SurveyWeb. You do have to write in the title of the slide, I believe, or title of the presentation, just in the date. But it'll ask you a few questions and you can give us a little bit of feedback on this presentation. Keeping in mind it's a national presentation and it is online. Often myself and my colleagues, we will come out for example, Sam and Misty, who are monitoring the chat today. We will come out if we're in your area, if you want. It's a free service, and we will give web workshops and trainings on different aspects of what we do at the Census Bureau. So, all right, so thank you once again for being with us today. I think I'm turning it back over to you, Crystal. Not quite sure, or maybe Anthony, but thank you everybody for attending today.
Yes, yes, and thank you. Thank you very much, David, for this excellent webinar. Now, before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. And also, of course, thank you to you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. But also be on the lookout for the recording and PowerPoint from this workshop on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy. That brings us to a close, so we thank you again and hope you have a great afternoon.
That concludes today's session. You may disconnect at this time.